questions kind of related to that. And if we have time, we can cover some other questions too. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Yep. There. Let's see. The admin link over here. Log in. Well, underneath the administration area, we have the LSI configuration admin. And let's see, this kind of, you have lots of, we can kind of just talk through this a little bit and tell you what your different options are and things like that. In general, we've set up a synchronization process which will run daily, or usually daily, although we can change that to whatever makes sense for you. Most people like it to run every night. It's pretty flexible. We set this up different ways for different people, but typically we want to use a certain keyword that's going to signal the synchronization process to bring all the products from your Eclipse database that have a certain keyword on them over into the LSI search engine at night. And usually we'll use something called WebReady, which you guys have been doing already. So this is the field where we have set up to pull all the products that have WebReady on them for you at night. Basically, there's a button called Run Synchronizer here, Run LSI Synchronizer. And what this will do is, well, this will update if you made any changes here. When you update your configuration changes, there's a configuration file inside the second phase website, and then there's also another configuration file called a schema file that's stored with the Lightspeed Index search engine. So this process is meant to do like kind of everything at once in one step for you. So when we run the synchronizer, it's going to update the configuration data to the latest that's on this screen, and then it's going to push out a new schema file to the Lightspeed Index engine. Then it's going to go through and retrieve all the products from Eclipse that have your keyword here, your synchronization keyword on them. Or it can be multiple keywords too, but usually it's smoothest just to have a single one. And it does that by bringing over kind of a batch of 100 products at a time. And as it's doing that product retrieval 100 at a time, it's analyzing those products, kind of reading all the data coming back and looking to see if there's any attributes on that data on any of the products coming across that hasn't been seen before. And so it's kind of doing a scanning process at the same time it does a synchronization. And as it's doing the scanning process, if it finds some new attribute that you've attached to the product, either through PDW or through product classification, then it will automatically add it to the configuration for you. And that's a real important step that we added because it's really difficult to manage if you've got to know what attributes are going to come across and pre-configure them and then bring your products across. It just became super unwieldy to manage that and also error prone. So we, a while back, we added this automatic scan process to the whole synchronizer. And so now it's going to be doing an automatic scan for new attributes all the time. and that saves a lot of problems. Let's see. So this button here, the Run Synchronizer, is what we hook up to a scheduled task in Windows so that it can be run at a certain time every night usually. And then you don't really have to actually run the synchronizer yourself manually unless there's some problem with the nightly run, or unless you've added a ton of new products or a ton of new data to your products and you decide that you don't want to wait until the next day for those to show up on the website, then you could run the synchronizer manually. And then the other thing it does, after it's retrieved all the products from Eclipse and scanned them all, it will do the indexing function, which loads those into the Lightspeed index, into the LSI index. The indexing itself is pretty fast. It only takes, I think it takes about 5 seconds per 1,000 products or something. So generally it takes maybe a minute or less. And actually we even found some newer settings we can do to make that even faster. So we do a lot of work on the LSI to keep improving it all the time. So the indexing piece happens pretty quickly, less than a minute, and there's only a piece of that indexing time window of where the website might not be able to respond to a search. And that's really only when it's swapping out the index files at the end of the process. So usually it's just maybe a few seconds of downtime, and it's not even really downtime. It's going to be an extra 5 or 10 second delay on a page access while the new index is swapped out. And we do that typically in the middle of the night anyway. So the idea is that you're never going to have any downtime during this whole update process. Before it does the synchronization, it also backs up the previous indexes. So we have a backup directory specified, and we also need to know where the Lightspeed Index schema directory is. And then the Lightspeed Index runs as a separate web service from your website in general. So there actually is a URL that the website hits on the back end to handle the web service. So it's really distributed that way and super high performance. And let's see, that's pretty much an overview of how it works. So when you do it synchronized, it's going to back up your previous indexes first and then retrieve all the products and create a new index. We don't currently have an automatic way to restore a backup, but it's really rare that a problem happens, but you know, a problem could happen and your index might be down, and so we want to have a backup so that we can either restore your backup index and then start a new synchronization process, or we also have a fallback where we can temporarily set it to do Eclipse searches until the new synchronizer runs and your LSI is back up. So we're always working to make it more and more foolproof and reach 100% uptime if we can. So those are the procedures in place right now. So then we want to go back up into the configuration screen of the actual attributes. It's split into 4 different sections here. The first section is called mandatory fields, and the mandatory and actually both the mandatory and additional fields are going to be common for every product. Like every product is going to have this information. So every product has a product ID, which is its Eclipse part number. They don't necessarily have to have data in them, but we have a definition here for every product. So ID, keywords, product families, a price, product description, And then we also have alternate description, price line, buy line, product status, UPC, availability, and the total hit. Let me kind of walk through these. There's some things we've found that recently when some of our clients were getting real creative with trying to see how many changes they could make, and it broke some things. So I'll warn you on some of those that I've learned, and it's best for you not to change any of the field ID columns, because the field ID is really linked to the data field name in Eclipse. So those have to match up. The other field over here is the field name, the web description name. And that's actually what you do want to change, or you can do whatever you want with, because this is actually what's going to show up on your website. So when you see attributes on your website, they can be made very friendly. So right now you don't have a lot of data coming in, or super useful data, but you will, and we're going to help you set that up too, and I know you're going to keep adding that over time. But in general, you can see, the field name is kind of shorthand to match the field name that we get back from Eclipse, but then we want to put a nice web-friendly name in the name over here. So the ID you don't really want to mess with, but you can do any changes you want on the name, on the web-friendly name here, the display name we call it. It's also a good idea to, some people are thinking, well, I don't really use price line, I don't use buy line, and I don't use something else, so you can actually turn these off with these check boxes. But I would recommend that you leave them all on, because if they're not hurting anything, and the interesting thing is that like stock status, buy line, and price line, they're hooked up to another admin page which we'll pop over to too, which is the product pricing and availability admin page. And those give you the ability to exclude products based on stock status. Like you can exclude, delete, purge, miscellaneous charge, things like that. I mean, you don't really probably need to exclude, because you wouldn't put the web ready keyword on those anyway, but sometimes you might want to. Like you have web ready on a bunch of your products, but then that product moves into delete status or purge status, or you might decide that you don't want to show non-stock, something like that. Then you could put an exclude filter on that, hey, I don't want to show any delete status. And you don't really have to worry about going in and making sure the web ready is taken back off of those products. So we just want things to work in conjunction with each other, because the LSI is really intelligent about handling filters and excludes, and those things are fed right into the engine automatically. So it's best, I'd say, just to leave these selected and turned on, even if you're not going to use them. So that's just two warnings. We want to leave the field IDs alone, and we probably want to leave these turned on. But otherwise, what you do have the ability of is changing the description to whatever you'd like the description to be. The length column you can kind of ignore. We use the length only if we're having to route all of this stuff through a SQL database, but that's becoming less and less common that we actually have a reason to route it through a SQL database. So really, the data length is not so important to worry about. The field type and the displayable and the priority, these three things are super interesting, and the things that you can work with. So we'll just go across, starting with the field type. Each field type, product data field type, has 4 choices on it. So it can be set to searchable, and searchable means it's part of the global search set. So when somebody's typing in something up here, like a certain type of fuse or junction box or something like that, the fields that are marked searchable are the fields that it's going to search against to match products. It's also when you're defining your drill down categories and you tie a certain search keyword to a certain search term. If you choose general search, it'll search against all the different data fields that are marked searchable. So these are totally under your control. Also in drill downs is often used to just single out search against a specific field like keywords. So that's another option. But in general, you're thinking about the type in search box and what things should be searchable. And often the description, a manufacturer name, UPC code, keywords, things like that make sense to be your searchable fields. Sometimes you might want, alternate description as well. And sometimes other attributes, colors and sizes and things, special features and other attribute fields, you're going to have to kind of think about them on a case-by-case basis if you want them to be searchable or not. Generally, they don't need to be searchable, attribute fields. So anyway, the choice here, the second choice is called categorizable. Categorizable means that after a search has been performed and there's a list of products returned, like say maybe 500 products got returned on a given search, or maybe somebody searched for something really, really broad like fuse or something like that, then they maybe get 12,000 results back. Categorizable, what the Lightspeed Index does is dynamically put up menus and choices of common attributes that were dynamically determined on the fly to help the user refine their selection and find the product that they're looking for. So a categorizable attribute is one that you would want to make available as a refinement choice for somebody to refine their selection and drill in further to find the product that they're looking for. So categorizable things that would not be categorizable are something that's kind of a hidden behind the scenes thing, or something that's unique to every single product, like a UPC code. You don't want that as categorizable, because if there's 500 results on the screen, you don't really want to put up a refine your results by UPC and then have 500 single choices to choose from, but if you wanted it to be more interesting, like something that would group the products, like by a voltage or an amperage or a usage or a color or a size, then, out of your 500 results, you might have, 20 of them that are red, 50 of them that are black, and 13 of them that are blue, that kind of thing. And somebody can quickly say, no, I only want to look at the blue ones. They can click on blue, and their 500 results go down to 13, and they can scan the page and immediately see which product they're looking for. So categorizable will usually be something that, or a manufacturer name. So they broadly search on something, and then they can drill in how many things are made by a certain manufacturer, like they're really interested only in this, a certain manufacturer. So those are good ones to have. And generally, any attribute can be set to categorizable. If it's one of these kind of an amperage or some kind of a size or a general attribute, rather than the only ones that really we recommend that you don't set as categorizable would be like a UPC or special features, marketing description, or image, different kinds of things that you might have in there that are unique to a given product. So you have the choice on each attribute of either searchable, categorizable, or sometimes you might want it to be both searchable and categorizable. A few cases are like that, like manufacturer's one like that, or a brand name. I usually like to set to both because it's something that you search on, and it's also one that's super valuable to narrow your results down by. And then there's the fourth case is neither. So sometimes you don't want it to appear, you don't want it to be searchable, and you don't need it to be a refinement categorizable attribute, so you can set it to neither. You're either using it for an internal reason, or you want it to display on the product specification table on the product detail page. So it is a specification parameter, but you don't need it to be either searchable or categorizable. So really, neither is used fairly often too. Then the other thing over here is this checkbox called displayable, and the displayable checkbox means whether you would like this displayed on the product specification table or not. So between these two columns, you really are kind of determining how you want your data attributes to be handled by the system. When you're bringing in, when it's doing its scan at night and it automatically picks up new data fields, it's going to automatically set them to categorizable and displayable, assuming that you would like them to be a categorizable attribute and that you'd like them to be displayed on the specification table. And the reason we do that is because 90% of the cases you actually want this configuration. So then when it's doing its automatic scan and just preloading everything for you, it's going to be set up nicely for you to begin with, and then it's kind of easy for you to scan down your list and look for exceptions. Look for the thing like maybe a catalog number, a brand name that you might want to go ahead and make searchable. Catalog number is another one that you wouldn't want it categorizable because it's unique to every single product. So you're not really helping somebody narrow the results. But it is something, catalog number, that it'd be good to have searchable, if you had something like that. Or then if you're looking for some things like, sometimes inside your data, like if it comes from trade service or places, there's extra images, there's specification files, there's all kinds of different things. And some of those parameters, you don't need them to be, you can set it to neither. You don't need it to be searchable or categorizable, but you want it to be on the spec table. And when like a spec file or a manufacturer website, something like that, is going up as an attribute, we automatically hyperlink it on the spec table on the product page so that people can link right over to it. So sometimes it'll be neither, but you actually want to show it on the spec table. Sometimes it'll be something totally internal and you're using it for some other purpose, or we want to custom program your product page to show it outside of the spec table. Like maybe if we had something called special features as an attribute, we might decide, yeah, we want to put special features out on the page in a different place, and then we might turn it off so it doesn't duplicate display on the spec table. So
what's the spec table?
Yeah, I'll show you. I'm going to show you some examples of all this just in a second. The last thing here really is the priority column, and then we'll go through kind of some examples a little bit. The priority column helps you when a bunch of refinement attributes, categorizable attributes show up either on your left column or wherever we have them programmed for you. They're going to show up in alphabetical order, so it's fairly easy for the user to look through and choose what attribute they want to refine by, you know, like an amperage or something like that. But there are certain attributes that you may want to change the display order, like always have them show up at the top of the page. So a lot of our customers decide to do that, like usually the manufacturer name, sometimes the product stock status, and you want to prioritize those so they show up at the top of the page. So sometimes like a brand name, you might put a 1 on, and a stock status like a 2. That would put them 1 and 2 position on your page to display above everything else, and then everything else will be alphabetical. So the way the priority works is you could put numbers in on everything, but that's kind of a hassle. Really, the way it's used most of the time is just to go ahead and not use it at all, or pick a few things that you'd like to bump up to the top of the page and then leave everything else blank. But you can also have duplicate numbers too, like you can have multiple number 3s, you can have multiple number 4s. If they're the same, then it's going to organize them by alphabetical after it's already bumped them up into position. And the other thing you might find is that when you're searching like under the conduit area or something, you might say, well, really, you know, diameter or material type or something I'm finding is really the most important thing that people want to choose. So I think I want to make material or diameter like first and second and third highest priority when I'm in conduit, but then you might say, well, when I'm in wire, it's something totally different. It's like, you know, gauge of wire and different things like that. So then you can just say, well, I think I'll make the wire gauge also a number 3, and then it's kind of relative that way, because these attributes are dynamic. When you're in conduit, it's only showing attributes that are related to conduits. And if you're in wire, it's going to only show attributes that are related to the wire. So whatever's related to the product set that is in your search results. So quick overview of all the fields. We went through everything that you can do on the admin screen. And then I think we should probably pop back and forth and demonstrate either some changes and see how it affects things. We could do that, or just kind of look at the pages and see what we got. So I figure we can look at your pages, and we could also bring up another site that is a little farther along on their data or has been live for a while, so you can see where you're going. That kind of thing. I'm going to open up a new tab so that we can pop back over to the configuration, but at the same time be looking at the web page. Do we have a lot of these built out yet?
No.
Okay, no problem.
I have a couple questions. The category fields down below, the ones that we have filled in there, did we send those to you? Were those just a sampling of some? And are they down on the classification fields, the field ID? Are those things that we defined, or did you just grab some and put them in there for examples?
These all got pulled automatically on this product sync when the scanner saw them. So I forgot to tell you the 4 sections. That was the other thing. Well, I'm not going to do an update, but what it does is it's going to automatically scan your classification fields, and if it sees any, it's going to pull them in for use. So these are all your classification fields, and I know most of them are not set up for this use. Okay. But if they doesn't hurt anything. It just put them in automatically because when it's querying your products, this information was attached to those products. So I know most of it's probably not anything that you want to use. And actually, we can use it for testing right now. But actually, when you see classification fields, like most of these that you probably don't want to bother being included, you will just go ahead and check them displayable off and set them to neither. Then they're pretty much.
Now I noticed
out
those
of the
don't
loop.
look like PDW attribute fields. Those look like product attribute fields. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So here in this block, these are prod.class classification fields that it's seen. And a lot of people have a lot of classifications that are not really related to the LSI, so it's pretty common as a first step after it's scanned and pulled these in to go ahead and basically turn them all off, or turn 80% of them off, because you don't need them. You don't need them for LSI. The next block here is the PDW block.
Okay.
And so far it has not been pulling in anything yet from your PDW.
And that's where the majority of our attributes will reside.
Yeah, that's where they're going to reside.
No, I don't think so, David, right?
Yeah, that's where the majority of our attribute data resides, is in the PDW.
Not products that don't have PDW links.
If they don't have PDW links, then we don't have any attribute data anyway.
Well, we will someday, right?
If we do, then they'll be in the PDW.
Or as soon as you do get some, it'll be automatically picked up. So that's the beauty of it. You get an update from, trade services or somebody, IDW, or you manually put stuff or upload into PDW. Every night it's doing an automatic sync and a scan, and these new attributes will just start coming in automatically every night. So that's the beauty of it. And you'll start to see these populate more and more. You may have, say you've got 2,000 PDW fields too, but whatever products you've decided to sync to LSI with WebReady, let's just make a hypothetical 2,000 products you've got with WebReady on, and you have 3,000 PDW attributes, but really it's only those 2,000 products, as they're pulled in and scanned, maybe have a usage in PDW of maybe 200 of those attributes. So you'll really only see 200 of those attributes show up on this list, because that's actually what your data set's using. But then over time, you're going to add more products to the WebReady as they get ready for the web, pictures, descriptions, or you want to sell them, you mass load some more products with the web-ready keyword. Then the sync runs the next day, and you've got 18,000 products in the LSI engine, and all of a sudden you may find, yeah, now I've got 800 attributes pulled in from your PDW now that are actually in use on the system. And it's going to try to do the best job of grabbing your PDW field name and putting an intelligent description name for you so that it's not too ugly there. I know these don't look too good, but they weren't really made to be attributes anyway. But then you can go through, quickly scan through and massage them and update the name and make them look nicer as you go through it.
So you're saying that all of those fields above that are not PDW fields were generated based on products in our Eclipse system right now that are not in PDW?
Well, these come out of your product file. So when you...
So the answer is yes?
Well, when you create a product classification field in Eclipse, it's pretty much global then to all your products. It doesn't mean they actually have data in them, but it does mean that every product has the potential to have a data item on it. So I think even if we do a search on your products, like we just did, and if we look at one of them, so right now you've got a little test set of 6,000 products, and we're not showing really any specifications or categorizations yet. So I don't know if we have that hooked up yet or if we need to. There really isn't too much data in there yet, but I can show you some other site how it's going to look too. But yeah, so even if so every product's going to come back with these fields, which just means it's available for use. It doesn't mean it's any problem or that you have to use it. I would just go through and see if any of these you did want to use. You could leave it on. Otherwise, we'll probably just turn these off because they're, you're going to mainly use your PDW items. If there's no data in them anyway, and most of them are blank fields, then there's nothing to display for LSI anyway, so they aren't hurting anything. But in general, you just have to do this once. And then if you were to add new product classifications, and then you'll just update the configuration as you make changes. If you make any changes up here to the field types, the displayable, or the field name, then you click the Update Configuration button and save the configuration. And then it will automatically update itself on the next day. There is if we want to kind of get into one detail, is that if you can change something to be categorizable or not categorizable, change something to be, change the display name, and you can change the displayable or not displayable, and you can change the priority. So you can change a lot of stuff, and that doesn't affect the LSI indexing search engine at all. So those will just take effect immediately. Like if I change the name of one of these, make it whatever, change the name, or I change it to categorizable or not, or I decide if I want it to be on the spec table or not, and then I hit the update configuration, that change is going to be live on the website immediately. So that's a cool thing. The only thing that's not immediately a change that can go immediate to the website is if you change something from being searchable to not searchable, or from not searchable to searchable, because the searchable field is the key thing that gets built into the whole index at night. Which fields are searchable is all goes into the index memory to see which fields are searchable. So if you do make a change of which fields are searchable in your configuration, you just have to wait till the next day until a new index happens automatically, and it'll take effect. Or you can jump down to this special feature at the bottom. It says utility functions to update the index if any attributes are changed to search from, made searchable or unsearchable. And if that's the case, you need to push the new schema file to the Lightspeed index engine, and you also successfully updated the schema, which basically tells it which fields are searchable, and then you need to tell it to update the index. So I tell it to update the index. Didn't actually do it, but you can do that manually, or you can just wait till the next day. If we wanted to look at another website, I can show you more how these things are in order. This United Electric Supply is one that is similar to yours in a way, and they have, just like you, they just recently put lots of attributes into their PDW. They didn't have hardly anything in there just recently. So in this case, I went to the service entrance cable under wire, and there's 22 items showed up, and on the left side you see the categorizable attributes. We're seeing wire size, gauge, color, brand name, conductor material. These are the things that were then. The idea is you want to try to help your customer find products in as few clicks and as fast as possible. And if I can go to a service entry cable category and say, I was looking, I'm looking for a certain thing here. If you're looking for
now the categories
or whatever,
are only in relationship to the 22 products that you pulled up before, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're not seeing anything related. If we go to so that's why it's called dynamic attributes, because I'll go look at their admin page in a second, and you'll see how many there are. There's like 1,000 of them defined, but this is only the ones that are common to these 22 products. I click into all the gray ones. Then we've got 7 products displayed, and these are only the ones that these 7 products now have in common. Then if we look at one of these, these are the specifications for that particular product. All the attributes that are on that product in their PDW basically are these attributes right here, and of the ones that are marked with the displayable checkbox in the admin are these guys. We can sort of see them too if we kind of pick back up here. We see that these products have wire size, color. Not all of them have a brand name. 2 of them have a Southwire brand name. All 7 of them have a conductor material. So that's a good one. If I was only looking for copper, I could choose copper here, and it would refine it down to copper. And so you're also seeing on the breadcrumb that I went from wire to service cable to gray to copper, and that's where I am. And I could always go back on the breadcrumb, pop back to gray, and see where I was at before, or you can use the back button. But see, we can see that out of these 4 items, you're drilling down pretty close. Like out of these 4 items, most of them they're all gray and all copper because I had already refined by those. They're all They're all stranded. They're all service entrance type, which is the category we're in. But there's a few things that are different. Like one of them's a 500 foot, and 3 of them are a cut to length thingy. And there's some different wire sizes to choose from out of these 4, so we can see those kind of things. You know, and if we click one of them, these are the attributes, stranded. And then see, there's one called special features, UV resistance, moisture resistant, that was chosen not to be a categorizable thing. You know, UPC's chosen not to be categorizable. So those are the things that we didn't see on the left because we decided they weren't important for the user to narrow their choices down by. If we took a look on their admin page, you know, you see kind of the same thing because in the top area, same setup you have. But then under classification field, kind of similar to you, they have a bunch of classification fields, but none of them are used really for the website. They're all just classifications that they have in their system for other uses or historical reasons or test reasons, or, you know, there's lots of reasons you can use the classifications fields internally. And so they have them all set to neither. They have one of them set to displayable, I think just for a testing purpose to see what it looks like when it displays. But I don't think they are using this healthcare one. But maybe they are. Maybe they decided that one is something that could display on the spec table if it shows up. Otherwise, the PDW section, like we were just talking about, has all the most has all the real data that we're using. So, and it was pulled out automatically out of the PDW. And so there's lots of stuff. As soon as you turn it on and do some mass loads of data, you can quickly get a lot of information displaying. And so they already had the field names with field names actually kind of look like this in Eclipse, and we add a PDW on it automatically so that we can kind of distinguish between classifications that might be of the same name and stuff like that. But then we automatically, when we read in the attribute from PDW, we try to make a display-friendly name for you so that you don't have to do a lot of work here. So basically, you scan the list after it automatically brings them all in and see if you need to do it.
I have an important question here regarding how we've organized our PDW data.
Okay.
The data that came in from IDEA on our attribute fields, it doesn't, let's take a look, let's go down here, let's just hang on for a second, stop scrolling there, and I'll pick one out here, right? All right, wire type, all right? Wire type is not contained in a specific definable PDW attribute location. The way we have it is we have like 27 different attribute filler spots, all right? And the first, each one of them have the attribute name, then the attribute unit of measure, and then the quantity, all right? So, yeah. So they're dynamic as far as what is stored in each of those locations. It's not a fixed location for wire size.
Yeah, that's great because we handle that case.
All right, great.
We've worked with IDW quite a bit, and at first we were having.
Then we have another.
Okay.
We have another vendor, XO, who does it this way, where working temperature would be defined as a specific location in the PDW. So we've got both cases, and we don't know whether we can use both of them separately and have it work well together, or whether we're going to have to make both of them be the same.
It's actually going to work perfect just the way you have it. Yeah, it's all set up. Luckily, there's some advantages to not being the first one around the block. We've been doing this for a few years now that LSI has been out and worked with the different data manufacturers, the XOs and trade services and the IDEA people. And actually that packed, I kind of refer to it as a packed attribute format that comes in.
From IDEA?
Yeah, from IDEA. And that one was a tricky one to deal with. And at first we were routing those kind of through a database method, and then we were able to program in a really nice automatic way to handle that. And it's, you know, the first time we did it, it was kind of a custom situation, and we actually worked with IDEA to give us a different, I mean, this isn't really important, but we had them give us a whole different data structure because they had been having trouble with multiple vendors on consuming that packed format. So anyway, we were doing it that way. And after working with it for a while, we had some good ideas about how we could automatically import it straight in this way. So now it's like super smooth and built in. And actually, United has some of that too. And
so you're saying I can get IDEA downloads in the packed format, I can get XO formats downloads in the unpacked format, and both of them will work fine.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's all set. All we need to do is we need to know what the packing naming convention is.
Okay,
like,
I can get to that.
Yeah, like these guys have both too, so this is a great example. And actually I didn't have the unpacking switch turned on initially, so this is a good test. You can see that there's something called webname 01, webname 01 through webname 24. And then there's web value 01 through web value 24.
Yep.
And actually, it's kind of, I mean, there's no data in here, so these need to just be deleted and cleaned out. But it's kind of cool that they're still in here because you asked a question on it. But before we had the automatic unpacking thing switch turned on for this, the scanner had brought in the raw names. And these are the IDEA raw names. And so they're still on the page here, but they should just be deleted and cleaned out. They're not in use because the next scanning run we turned on the unpack flag and told it what the naming convention was, that we're going to use web name and web value. Other people use completely different names, you know, so you can be whatever you want. But it's basically just...
I can get you those naming conventions that we're using.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great because I think we're probably about ready to see how much data we can bring in if you've got it in there. So yeah, I'm really
who do I send that to?
You can just throw that up on the Basecamp. Say, hey, this is our IDEA packed attribute names. Actually, I'm going to talk about that. Because we're not getting any PDW yet. There is a flag in your PDW called display in WOE, display in WO. and I think that's on an individual PDW field-by-field basis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible that you don't have that set to yes. So what you'll need to do is any PDW field that you want to come through to the website have to be marked display in low yes. And Ellen may be able to help you with that. Or you can,
I'm not seeing any metadata that has anything with that has even display in it.
do you know where that setting is, Ellen?
Yeah, it's in your PDW screen. Did you say you're looking at the metadata?
Yeah, I'm looking at my metadata maintenance, and I'm not seeing
Okay.
anything with low or display or anything like that. In
Yeah, it should say display in WOE. Let me see. I'm not logged into your system, so I can't look at one right this minute. But there is a field. You're looking at a product that has some PDW attributes.
hang on, I'll get to one here.
Yeah, go to a product.
I was looking in the metadata maintenance, but
Yeah, take a look at a product, because if you change it on one product, it changes it on all products. So pull up a product that has a PDW record.
great, got one. Okay.
Okay, and then choose a field that you would want to display and look at the metadata.
Okay.
And now do you see the field?
Oh,
It's about halfway down the screen on the left.
Yep, it's flagged
Okay.
as yes.
Okay, so you want that to be yes. And Scott, do we also have to set it as indexable? Yes?
No.
Okay.
The
so,
indexable means it's going to be searchable by the actual internal product search of Eclipse.
Okay.
But since
Okay.
we're searching by LSI, then the indexable doesn't really matter.
Okay, so as long as the display in WOE is set to yes, then the next time that a sync is run, it should pull it through into that LSI configuration. Is that correct?
Yeah. Do you have the part number for the one that you just changed?
I do. It is. I didn't change it. It was already set for display in WOE. The part number is .5379302.
We have these diagnostic tools also under the website administration area where we can look at kind of the raw data coming from Eclipse. And so it has some general information in the top, then an availability, branch availability block, again closed, pricing information, and then this is all your product classification information that you have. So this is what the LSI scanner is seeing inside your product classification. And then extended data is another thing. External references, you know where your images are set up usually. And then rich content is the PDW information. And so we are getting some PDW information through. That's good. We're getting an image, and these must be your pack names right here. Your idea of things. So we would be seeing like brand name Little Fuse. So this is going to unpack onto your config as a brand name attribute, and the data behind it's going to be Little Fuse for this guy. So that's good.
Yep.
So I can set those names just from looking at that. So it looks like that's primarily what your data is until you get the XO data loaded. But IDEA has a ton of data, so that's gonna be great. This guy, I don't know, it probably doesn't have the web ready on it, but
Let me look real quick. I don't believe it. We haven't begun doing that very much.
okay. Well, I can.
No, there's no web ready.
I'll do something interesting if we have time. I know the sync takes time, but
No.
let's change something here. I'm going to change the keyword. Instead of web ready, we'll use the word fuse and do a synchronization run as a test. And so the synchronizer is running right now, and I decided to change it, so we're going to pull everything with fuse on it and put it in. I'll put it back to web ready because I know we kind of want to stick with a certain system and get it ready for you.
So is it looking for fuse in the keywords? It won't find that either.
Or the description, product description.
Or the description, okay. All right, okay. Yeah, it does have it in the product description.
Just to see how it's doing here. Or maybe we can let that run for a little bit while we talk. I'm curious if it, to see it pick up. Bombed out on fuse. Fuse had some kind of data problem.
Did you do all caps on fuse?
It's actually case insensitive on the.
Okay.
Do
L-FSE. L-FSE. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't update the synchronous. Oh, the other one's still running. You can't run two at once, which is actually a good thing. So the synchronizations need to run all the way through. Why is it having an error? Anyway, I'll have to look at this a little bit. We got to get your sync process running smooth. I guess we're not going to be able to do it live on the fly, but we'll get that set up for you. The tools are all there. We're ready to start really applying them. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like that data is coming through from my idea. So
okay,
we should be able to get you a lot of data displaying really soon here.
So you might want to go through and grab one of your bylines or price lines that has a lot of products in it with attributes and set them to web ready, just so you have something to look at when you start putting those attributes in there, just to see if you're going in the right direction. You can always take the web ready off again, but mark a bunch of them just so you've got something to look at.
Yeah. And we'll get the synchronizer process running smooth for you on a nightly basis. So as you start working your configuration, you'll see the results, kind of daily results. See. Yeah, so a lot of these are unpacked from the packed format of IDEA. Let's see. I guess that's pretty much it. We usually takes about an hour to discuss the LSI and that stuff, and looks like we're out there with it. You have any more questions?
No, you cleared a lot up.
Okay, that's good.
Scott, I have one question for you that I haven't, that they should benefit from, is the remove checkbox. If you remove something, does it add it back when you sync the next the next time?
Yeah.
So it really doesn't make any sense to remove it.
Right, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, so we just need to set it to neither if we don't want it to show up.
Yeah. The remove, before we had the auto scan process built in, you had to do a lot of adding and removing, and it was actually, it was fairly painful. I mean, we would do a scan, or we'd even do a spreadsheet, kind of like how we do drill down sometimes. Hey, let's even, you know, load from the idea schema to see what all the possible attributes were, and we would like preload stuff. And then if you'd add a new PDW, you'd have to come in here and manually click the add button and type it in here. And, you know, that worked fine, but if you didn't do stuff in the right order, then things would crash because you can't index before the field's defined. The field has to be defined before you index. So we were using the add and the remove a lot to do manual stuff, and it was a lot of work. So the automatic scanner has been a real blessing for us that way, because what we want to do is, hey, just worry about putting your data on your products. Don't worry about having to do a whole bunch of work with LSI. So now we automatically pick it up. The other problem with adding all the possible idea attributes, you'd have, you know, like 3,000 or 4,000 of them in this list, but really only 300 of them were actually in use. And then there was a lot more overhead on the LSI, and it was a lot harder to administer it and look through the whole huge list. So that wasn't a good idea. So anyway, it's much better now to just scan the actual products as we pull them in and automatically put it in. So the remove doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you get a duplicate in there or you get something that you didn't mean to have in there, and you have the remove choice. So yeah, you're going to want to set them to neither and turn them off, or they're going to come back in the next day.
Yeah, that's helpful. I wanted to make sure we didn't spend a lot of time doing something like that and then have them reappear. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ellen? Because, yeah, I know we're always working and we don't get enough time to chat either about some things like this, but I think that's mostly it.
It looks good, but I want to make sure that I understand what's going to happen. So when the products in Eclipse get updated with that web ready, if there are any problems with what displays, I know where to look. So so Ginger and David, you guys got it figured out what you need to do from here?
You know, I think we've got a starting point where we can figure it out.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's the good point. Give you a good starting point. We know now that once we get going, we'll do the automatic unpack thing, and we just want to kind of, even if you don't totally memorize every option that we just told you, you sort of know what's available now. And if you have to come back and ask us, oh, I forgot how to use this particular piece of it, you know, you can ask us for clarification. One thing I'll tell you is the availability, the product availability count actually will come in every night with your sync, and that provides the ability to sort your results by availability.
So it's only as good as the last update the night before as far as the quantity on hand.
Exactly. So really, when we display it on the screen, we're displaying the actual real-time availability, and we're showing the actual real-time customer price too. But we can't, or see in this case there's 5,000 items came back under conduit. And if we go to Eclipse for real-time information on those 5,000 items, then we're kind of defeating the purpose of using the light speed index, because we're going to have to wait for 15 minutes for Eclipse to give us the availability on 5,000 items so we can do a sort, you know. So what we do is we pull in a base price, and we pull in the availability every day, and then that gives us a good sort capability. And then, you know, it's going to be real accurate in the morning, and then it might slowly not be perfect, but it actually works pretty good. So. Yeah, usually you'll find out it works pretty good, but, you know, we're seeing some availabilities that aren't. But it's late in the day, too, and I'm not sure if they're syncing every single night yet on this site. So anyway, just so you know what that is, how that works. There's another thing we could talk about as more of an advanced feature later, is there's a ranking. You can actually add a product ranking attribute and start to populate that kind of manually. So that's another more advanced function. And that's a case where, say, hey, if somebody searches on Fuse, I really would like this brand name to show up before another brand name, even if it, and you could start to populate some products with a rank attribute, and that would allow them to bump up higher in the results. By default, the Lightspeed Index has a super matching algorithm, and it's actually doing its own. So the default sort is actually using the LSI's built-in ranking algorithm. So it tries to figure out, hey, if it's something's an exact match to a word or a partial match or different kind of things like that, it's able to try to put more relevant, closer matches towards the top of the list. And it does do that, and but then otherwise we have description, price, availability options. And so what we do is we can factor that in with the ranking attribute with the default algorithm. So, but most people don't start off using that as kind of something you can add on later as you get things going. All right.
It sounds like we've got a good start on this now. That plays really well into, we have a training meeting tomorrow with EXO, so you've cleared up a lot of questions on our mind how we deal with them.
Okay. Beautiful. We're excited to see that data coming in. That's always fun when it's when you got things to play with and look at.
It's a little more complex because you know with IDEA and the packed attributes, I only had to set up so many 27 times 3 attributes. I've got to set up hundreds or thousands of them for unique ones for EXO to import into.
Yeah.
A lot of metadata fields to set up in PDW for them.
Yeah.
But that's what we do.
Okay. Have fun with it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.